All right. I think hopefully that will fix it. We shall see if we're back in business here. I started a new stream and we'll get this going. So hopefully this will work. People will rejoin and we'll go from there. But yeah, greetings, Liberty Vaulters. Thanks for rejoining me. Last night I had the opportunity to interview Anthony Aguilar, which was truly incredible. Anthony Aguilar is a hero. I was able to thankfully tell him how much I appreciated him to his face, and I got to tell him that I consider himself in the same category as Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. So hopefully I've fixed it here in the chat, and thanks for chiming in. Anyone that is in the chat, feel free to let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm sure a lot of people are tuning in across the globe, and that's just incredible. But the interview with Anthony Aguilar went awesome. I had two, hours to talk to him. I only planned on it being 1 hour, and thankfully it went over that. Yeah, greetings, Giovanni. Bori Q Moreno, welcome, good to hear. I tweaked the bitrate down to 25,000. Hopefully that will help. Typically I record higher than that, so I'm thinking that might be it. That might have been what was causing it. We'll see, though. I have an excellent signal. We got someone from Sydney. Monica's from Sydney. Maggie's back. Great. Welcome back, Maggie. I hope people filter in. Oh, we got Colette Day. Okay, welcome, Colette. Thank you for liking, and good to see you again. We got Denmark in the house. We have Hawaii. Darius is in Hawaii. We have Maggie from Puerto Rico. Welcome. Displaying the flag. Actually, there's more people outside the U.S. than in the U.S. so far, which is awesome. Elisa from Vancouver, welcome. Good to see you. Maryland. Maryland. Good, I'm glad it looks good and I'm back. Hopefully this works. I'm just going to keep the stream output at 25,000 and hopefully that works. Vernon's from Mississippi. Welcome, Vernon. Minnesota. Laura's from Minnesota. Laura, I lived in Minnesota for 25 years. In Roseville and the Minneapolis area. I actually grew up in Woodbury. Guatama, welcome, sir. We are just starting right now. So, it wasn't you guys. It wasn't on your end. It was on my end, guys. So, let me talk about the interview with Anthony Aguilar. So, the interview with Anthony Aguilar was great. There were two real serious, stunning revelations that he brought up, actually, in my estimation. And one of them was he categorically declared that, the IDF and Israel were using the aid stations in Gaza. There was, from 400 under the UN, then it was reduced to 4 under the GHF, and eventually one of those 4 closed down. And he was manning those stations as a high-level contractor in UG Solutions. They worked with the GHF, and he was saying just straight-up declarative, they used those aid facilities to lure Palestinians out of their houses, go to the aid facilities, and use that to kill them. I can't think of a more ghastly and cruel and genocidal activity than that, and confirming that is all sorts of reporting on how many deaths there were. There were over 2,000 deaths just at those aid facilities. For a while there, in that, 3-4 month stretch, I can't remember what exactly it was, you would see dozens of people dying each day. And this was reported. Actually, it even got some legacy media coverage, but the best at covering this was on antiwar.com by Dave DeCamp and some others there. Really great reporting there. And he said, his experiences led him to believe that they were doing this deliberately. Like, this wasn't just a project to feed the dying masses. They didn't have enough food, they didn't have enough logistics, no one really had experience to do this, including the leader of the GHF, Johnny Moore, and they actually used this as a cruel lure to kill Palestinians. And it's just so horrible. I can't say enough about how devastating that is. And another thing that I learned from him was that he was saying that he saw plans for a Gaza Riviera in 2024. And he told me this because of a map he saw where the date was 2021. And we've heard all about of the redevelopment plans for Gaza, Jared Kushner being involved in it, And, seeing those plans laid out. And, 4 times defunky, you're doing something right when they start messing with your live streams. Is it happening again, though? I hope it's not happening again. But let me know if you think it is. But yeah, he saw plans for this Gaza Riviera planned in 2021, and it really is crazy considering the fact that October 7th happened in 2023, October 7th, and 2 years before that, they had the redevelopment plans going. So this doesn't bode well for people that said that, this wasn't preordained. At the very least, the IDF looked the other way, and at the very worst, they were involved in allowing October 7th to happen. We know about the Hannibal Directive. Am I buffering still, guys? Let me know. Let me know if I'm still buffering. Like I said before, Super Chats will be entertained, and I will answer them as I can. I'll answer the Super Chats whenever possible. Looks like YouTube is messing with you a little bit. Crap, dude. I hope it doesn't continue. I'm going to try to reduce my output on the fly right now. I reduced it even more. We got Bakersfield in the house. Alright, if this keeps happening, I might have to... I don't know. I might have to, create a stream on... It still is? Okay, I might have to create a stream on StreamYard or something and go live that way. It's just so ridiculous. I hate this. But maybe we'll have to go that route. I don't know what's happening. I went down in my bit rate. I could go to constant QP and try that, man. We'll try that. Greetings, Cape. We'll see if this helps any. You guys will have to help me to see if I'm still buffering. So let me know if I am still buffering. We have someone else. We have someone in Massachusetts. Eric's from Massachusetts. We have Scott in East End of Long Island. I'm frozen. Oh, perfect. Okay. I'm buffering. Okay, well, we're gonna have to probably do this once more. I think I'm gonna just create a new stream, potentially. 4 times Defunky says it's working well now. I would love to talk with Kiriaku. I'm not buffering now. Okay, if I start to buffer, someone tell me immediately that I'm buffering again. Jonaver is in Colorado. It seems better now. Perfect. I would love to talk to John Kiriakou. John Kiriakou is a hero because he exposed CIA torture, unconstitutional and immoral torture schemes, including waterboarding and sleep deprivation, told his story as a whistleblower, and paid the ultimate price for it. They tried to throw the house at that guy and ruin his life. So I would love to talk to Kiriakou. He has a great podcast, by the way. I'll definitely try to talk with him. I'm good. Okay, that's awesome, man. I need to keep it on these settings or look into this, so... Perfect. Good here now, Dave. I love to hear that. Thank you guys so much for helping confirm this. But Kiriakou would be amazing. I put Kiriakou on the level of Snowden and Assange and Aguilar too, by the way. Awesome. Maybe I'll just keep on constant bitrate for this then? Reno, Nevada. All right. Pittsburgh. We got some Pittsburgh. Duchess is here. Great. Good to see you, Duchess. I recognize a lot of you guys from the comments section, which is awesome. Elisa, thanks for saying that. S. Savage, good to see you here too, man. Net10 Yahoo, great. Net10 Yahoo. I had to read that before I got that, but that's a clever little avatar there. Moniker. Okay, I'm fine. Read your chat, it's fine. Perfect. Thank you guys so much. All right, we're back in business. So, I just told you guys about the 2 biggest revelations I think that I learned from Aguilar. And the story is totally horrific. You guys, a lot of you guys know it. You've seen Aguilar on other programs. I thought I got out of Tony more than a lot of the other programs had in their interviews. He really went into deeper detail. I got some good questions from you guys that I asked him, and he was more than willing to entertain them. I just feel that his courage is on a whole nother level. I mean, he was holding these politicians accountable in congressional hearings where he's holding up the Constitution saying, there's a genocide in Gaza, you're violating your oath to the Constitution. And man, that means the world to me. And we're going to keep in contact. I have his cell phone number. We're going to keep in coordination. Maybe I'll have him back in the future, and that will be awesome. Yeah, S. Savage, no problem, man. Dragon Slayer. Okay, the commercials don't buffer at all. Commercials never buffer, man. Poet is here. What's up, Poet? Good to see you again. It's good. Feruz, thanks for being a member, man. We got lots of members here. Celtic was here. We got 4 times the Funky. We got Feruz. We got a lot of members in the house. Thanks so much, guys. If you want to be a member, you get access to all my videos before they go live. So you can sign up as a member by clicking join down below. And you can also... Oh, Celtic is back. Welcome back. Sorry to leave you guys hanging back on the old stream. I think it's working back now, and we're going to work with this. So the plan here, guys, if you want to leave super chats, I will answer those questions later. I am going to get into 2 particular topics, maybe 3. First of all, the Ukraine deal, which seems completely to have gone nowhere, and that's for good reason. We'll get into that in a second. And also Massie for president. That's what I want to get into. Then I'll answer questions selectively. If you leave a super chat, I'll definitely answer that. And Elisa, thanks so much for your kind words on the interview. So, all right, let's get into the Ukraine deal. So last week, the Ukraine deal was pretty much the lead story, if you ask me. And you had Donald Trump initiating contact with the Russians through the Russian Interior Minister, by my understanding, Kirill Dmitriev, in Miami with Steve Witkoff, hammering out this 28-point plan. Now, it's not totally clear, and there's been some mixed reporting on this, as to how much buy-in the Russians had on this 28-point plan in its original state. It doesn't seem like some of the things in that plan were conducive to what Russia has been willing to accept in the past and said they're willing to accept for a peace deal. And what stuck out to me right away, and Judge Napolitano picked up on this too, is under that 28-point plan, they wanted to limit Ukraine's army to 600,000 standing forces. Now, that is a lot of forces, and when you consider that in the early months of the war, in the Istanbul Agreement, which was a pitch to Zelensky to end the war right now, and if you remember, Boris Johnson and the United States government seems to have talked him out of that, said, no, we got your back, we'll support you to the end, yeah, Slava Ukraine till the end, right? We're going to bankroll your proxy war versus Russia. He backed out of that, but guess what the standing army limitations were under that agreement? It was actually 85,000. So if you think of that, what they put in this 28-point agreement was 6 times more than what that Zelensky was initially willing to ascribe to under the Istanbul Accord. So it didn't seem like that was going to be a plausible plan. Now, the original 28-point plan did have some other things that Russia did want, and it's just the top-level requirement is that Ukraine can't join NATO. Red line, it's always been the red line. We've always known it's the red line, and we knew that since at least 2009 because of William Burns' memo to Condoleezza Rice. It might actually have been 2008 where he said, he was the ambassador to Russia at the time, he said, I pulled all the political factions here in Russia. I've talked to everyone. And for every single one, Ukraine's entry into NATO is a red line that will guarantee a future conflict with Russia. You can read this memo. It's called the Niet Means Niet memo. William Burns eventually became the CIA director under Biden, by the way, ironically enough. But thanks to the heroic Julian Assange, we have that memo that says that. So that did make it into this 28-point plan. Now, here's the problem. At first, it looked like this might be a feasible plan. Like, there was mixed reporting on the buy-in from the Russians, and at the same time, Trump was signaling some good things about it. So I want you guys to watch this video from Trump and what he said about this when he was asked about the plan, and what if Zelensky doesn't like this plan? That's the question from the reporter. Let's see what Trump said here.
I wanted to ask you also about partner or giving up its dignity. There's been criticism that this deal...
You mean he doesn't like it?
It's unclear. He was sort of
Well,
tenuous.
he'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, you know, they should just keep fighting, I guess, you know?
The suggestion that he made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine. Is that
Well, at some
accurate?
point, he's gonna have to accept something, you know? He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office, not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. Don't forget, I inherited this war. I would have never, this war never would have happened. I inherited.
Okay, we're going to get out of the propaganda portion of this, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's hard to hear that, but the reporter asked him, what if Zelensky doesn't like this plan? And Trump clearly said, well, he'll have to like it. He's going to have to take it as it is. Essentially, that's what Trump's saying. And, you know, the alternative is he'll just have to keep fighting. Now, that's the perfect position for America to have, by the way. That's the position I've said Trump needs to maintain from the second he stepped into the Oval Office again. Give Zelensky an ultimatum. Zelensky doesn't even have to be involved in the negotiations whatsoever. You can say, here's your plan, Zelensky, take it or leave it. If you leave it, we're out. No more funding. You'll have to work with the Europeans if you want more funding. Or, if you take it, we'll be involved, we'll try to guide you into a safer future, but we're not going to bankroll your ass anymore. That was a good standpoint. But guess what happened? It did, in fact, matter what Zelensky thought. And he didn't have to like it. That's what happened. Because what you had after this plan came out, and you saw this mass media campaign to smear the plan as if it was a Russian plan, right? Even though it would have allowed Ukraine to have a 600,000 military force standing army, which it's not clear that Russians even endorsed. They said this is just the Putin plan, even though there's not real clear evidence that Russians bought into this, and especially Lavrov and Putin, Lavrov being the foreign minister, and that this was ever going to be entertained seriously, you know, by that level. You only had Dmitriev. He's the interior minister, I think. He's a Putin ally for sure, but he's not the foreign minister, and he's not Putin himself. So he didn't have that authority. Well, guess what happened? After this propaganda fervor of calling this the Russian plan, despite the fact that it wasn't, you had alternative plans being offered, including an EU plan. You had alternative options being entertained through amendments by the Ukrainians. They allowed the Ukrainians to amend this peace deal into an unpalpable dead letter, one that the Russians could never accept. And they did this in several ways, but most obviously, it was by trying to take out the clause that said that Ukraine would be prohibited from joining NATO. So they take that out. It could have said anything else. It could have said, we surrender all territory to the Russians. But if you take that clause out, there's no way the Russians would accept it. They're not willing for that to be acceptable, that Russia can join NATO. No, that's what this whole war is about. That's what this war has been about since 2014, when the United States helped overthrow the Yanukovych government. It was called the Revolution of Dignity, but it really was the Revolution of Duplicity, where you had the U.S. siding with the anti-democratic forces to take out Yanukovych, ironically elected, the democratically elected leader of Ukraine. Guess why? You know what the deep state hates the most? It's neutrality. And Yanukovych wanted to be neutral. He didn't want a Ukraine that was going to be adversarial toward the Russians, but he also didn't want to join NATO. And he didn't even want to join Russia. He didn't want to be part of BRICS. He didn't want to join in some kind of tightly knit alliance with the Russians. He just wanted to be neutral. And guess what? Neutrality is not enough for the deep state. So because of that, this deal completely died, essentially. You are seeing some things from Putin saying, like, hey, this has some things that might be the basis for future discussions, but it's very clear that this deal was amended. You know, it's like from Star Wars. You amended the deal. From Darth Vader saying that, pray that I don't amend it further. I can't remember that exact scene. I played that in some videos, but it's kind of funny. So that's what we have in the Ukraine deal. Doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. The ultimatum really should be, take the deal or leave it. Stop the aid going into Ukraine. That's the way to end this war. Zelensky would be forced. His hand would be forced to sign a peace at that point. And it's just been too much money down the drain. It's been too many conscripts dying. 1 million in total in Ukraine over this. It's just catastrophic. It makes no sense for the United States to keep funding this mess. And Trump promised to end this war day one. You know, a lot of us dissidents thought that was totally hyperbolic. There's no real way he's actually going to do that. Could that really happen? You know, was that even feasible? Was Trump willing to do it? But hey, Trump hasn't tried to do it. Instead, he's continued support for Ukraine outside of like a 6-day interregnum in which he shut it down. Remember, Zelensky came to the White House. He said, you don't have the cards. It's good messaging, even though it is really the United States' fault of this whole thing. The United States used, make no mistake, they used Ukraine and the civilians there as a chess piece on the grand chessboard of empire building. That's what you got out of this conflict. And that's been the conflict for 3.5 years now. It's almost going to be 4. It's almost going to be 4 years soon. And what do we get from it? We just get debt and inflation. We get entangling alliances that aren't beneficial. We get bellicosity toward a nuclear power that really we could trade with, we could engage in diplomacy with. Putin was stunningly pro-Western prior to all this happening. Really, you know, ended up not being as much, you know, from 2012, 2011, when you got the Syria stuff going on, and the United States wanting to overthrow Assad and side with Al-Qaeda in the process, even though Syria, I mean, was a BRICS country. That solidified Syria with the BRICS countries and with Russia closer. Iran solidified with Russia closer. Trump, for daring to trade with Russia, as India did, Trump slapped punitive tariffs, 50% secondary tariffs on India, too. So you really have this galvanized BRICS alliance that this isn't, you know, helping whatsoever. So that really is what we have out of Ukraine. There's no sign that it's going to be ended. Putin has responded, you know, in mixed ways to this deal. It's clear that it got amended into a place that they couldn't accept, especially because it doesn't prohibit Ukraine from joining NATO. But at the same time, he says, hey, there's something here. Maybe there is, but I'm not convinced, because the military-industrial complex and the banks have their claws sunk deep into Trump, just like AIPAC is. They want this to go on forever. And it's just like Julian Assange said when it came to Afghanistan, but it applies to Ukraine as well. They don't want a successful war. They want an endless war. That's exactly what they want in Ukraine. It's a lucrative money stream to the bomb makers at Raytheon and Boeing and Lockheed Martin, while Americans languish under debt and inflation, by the way. And we can't take care of our own or, you know, care for our local communities because of all this debt and all this inflation that is caused by this, because the Fed is just a catalyst for it. You print money to finance debt, and the U.S. is $38 trillion in debt. It outspends its budget by something like $2 trillion a year. It's totally untenable. But that's what we have out of Ukraine. There's no sign that there's going to be a peace anytime soon. And welcome everyone that joined. Celtic, I really appreciate your super chat. And then we had another super chat earlier. Well, we had Netanyahu join as a member, so I really appreciate that. And Maggie had a super chat for later, and we'll talk about that in a second. About Venezuela. We'll get to your question in a second. I really appreciate you both, Maggie Netanyahu. Not the real Netanyahu. Make no mistake, I do not appreciate Benjamin Netanyahu. I appreciate the Net 10 Yahoo that joined as a YouTube member. I want to be clear about that, guys. Don't quote me on this one. Don't take this out of context. This is going to be clipped. All right? And Celtic, I do see your question too. You gave me a super chat. I'll read your question after this too. I did want to talk about Thomas Massie for president. All right? Thomas Massie for president. Protect that man at all costs. He seems like the only decent guy left in the House of Representatives in Congress, following the decision of Marjorie Taylor Greene to resign. And that's a heartbreaker, man. I was Team Marjorie all the way. She just kept getting better and better, especially over the last 2 years. Didn't vote for a single Ukraine aid package. Didn't vote for a single Israel aid package. We don't totally agree on everything, but she was also willing to criticize Trump on the Epstein file cover-up. Very much so, at great risk to herself, as we saw play out. We see how he attacked her. Marjorie Trader Greene, right? And she also was critical of his spendthrift attitude. Spending out the wazoo. Something that we cannot accept if we want to be America first, and you're allowing us to drown in debt. What is debt if not placing our posterity in shackles. That's exactly what debt is. That's what the founding fathers said debt is, but it seems like our political class is all about what can we extract now for people living today at the expense of people that will live after them, at the expense of future generations, even successive generations yet to come, because this debt is not going to go away. And it's not about taxation. It's not about debt in that respect. You can't just tax our way to prosperity here, because even if you confiscated, for instance, all of the assets of all the billionaires in the United States, do you know how much money that would raise? Let's say it's all of their assets, all the billionaires in the United States. Literally all of their assets confiscated right now, including the liquid assets and the illiquid assets. We'll even include that. The liquid assets, assets that aren't as easily sold, quickly. We'll even assume that you can sell those. Guess how much that would fund the federal government? It's about $5.5 trillion. Guess how much the U.S. government spends per year? It's about $7 trillion. Even if you confiscated all the wealth from all the billionaires in the United States, you could only fund the government for about 10 months. Maybe less. I think it's like 9.5. I'm not a math whiz. But our spending's out of control, and nothing's going to stop it. The Republicans aren't going to stop it. They had Doge, project $2 trillion in cuts, and they wouldn't stop it. So Massie's kind of standing alone in the House right now. And I'm not saying like he's the only great member on every single issue. He's not. You guys know of the Democrats, I think Ro Khanna is great. I don't agree with him on a lot, including Ukraine too, but he's good too. He showed courage. He showed the willingness to coalition with Massie. Yeah, the Democrats are the minority party. It's much easier to do that now. He deserves credit, though, for coalitioning with Massie on this, and with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Rand Paul, he's pretty heroic too. I don't think that he's that charismatic, though, and his presidential campaign in 2016 was really disappointing. He allowed Trump to outflank him on being anti-war. Trump was better on Iraq than Rand Paul, and he got more pops, and he was saying things that the Republican establishment wasn't ready to hear, but the American people were ready to hear. So Rand Paul, I think he votes great. There's some stylistic things, and we don't always agree, but I think Thomas Massie is really the man right now. He's the man really all dissidents should support. And we know that. You know how we know that he's the guy that we should all support? Because Miriam Adelson devoted up to $20 million to take him out in his primary. $20 million for a single congressional seat. And they've tried to take him out before, man. AIPAC has spent $400,000 alone trying to take him out in a previous election cycle. They couldn't do it. And man, I sure as hell hope they fall on their asses again this time. I sure hope that they cannot fund his takedown. I hope the people in his district outweigh the elites trying to orchestrate this all Zionist Congress as they're trying to do. They're trying to be, these masterminds that are piecing together a more Zionist Congress that already exists, if that's possible. It doesn't even seem like it's possible sometimes, right? But that is what they're trying to do. So stand with Massie at all costs. I hope he runs for president. There's a lot of time left. It's going to be 2 years until even the election cycle and the candidates ramp up. The primaries start, the beginning of that year. There's a lot of time until now and then. I'm not sure he wants to do it, but man, I'm all for it because it'd be a great messaging campaign. And he has the luxury of an independent media that's so different than, say, when Ron Paul ran in 2012 and 2008, where none of the media was on his side. They totally ignored him. And if you remember the Jon Stewart bit on The Daily Show was, mocking them for just ignoring Ron Paul, even though that he was getting acclaim in the debates. He was one of the most popular candidates. They would just omit him from lists and fundraising. Ron Paul gained the most funds from active military forces, by the way, something that they didn't tell us about. But now there's a new independent media, and dissidents have kind of won out, man. You have Joe Rogan and Chris Williamson and Theo Vaughn, and you have all these different platforms where he could get on there and really tell the truth when it matters most, when it's most controversial, as Ron Paul did, but with less chance for his views to be amplified and spread out to the masses. But now that is possible, and it'd be incredible. I really hope to see that, if only for a messaging campaign. Now, am I going to pretend he can win the presidency? No, I'm not going to pretend that. not the way that politics is constructed now, not with the political machine we have in both parties, where the filtration process does not allow a guy that wants to end the Fed and end the wars and stop the spending, stop the corporate welfare, stop the regulatory apparatus. I don't pretend that's going to happen, but at the same time, I think it's defensible to run a campaign like that so more Americans get exposed to those ideas. And they are, to some extent anyways. We're getting that. The independent media is doing that job without the presidential administration. But Massie is a guy that I would support 100% in a 2028 campaign. I would definitely donate to that campaign. It's one of the only campaigns that could get me to vote in a federal election again. So I hope that happens. And, big ups to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know a lot of people thought when she decided to resign, well, she's going to run. She's a shoo-in. She's definitely going to run. A lot of people think she's going to run for governor or she's going to run for president. I'm not convinced of that at all, especially with her willingness to burn more bridges after she decided to resign on Twitter. If you've seen how she's responded to some things afterward, I think she's just fed up with the Washington machine. And who can blame her, by the way, right? This has the ability to eat away at your soul, and she lives it through the day by day. She sees the corruption up close and personal. We see it from afar and we critique it, but man, she's embroiled in the center of it, and who could blame her for wanting to get out of that hellscape? But that's where I think she is. So yeah, I don't consider Marjorie Taylor Greene a realistic candidate to run. I would like her to run too, but more power to her if she doesn't want to. Maybe she'll get on a podcast. Maybe she'll go back to the construction industry. She has a successful construction firm. I think it's called Taylor Commercial. And we'll see if it happens. But I'm supporting Thomas Massie. Protect that man at all costs. We will get into the super chats. I see there were a few more. We got one from Duchess. Hey, thank you for all you do. I appreciate that, Duchess. I'll answer the question about Venezuela and then the question from Celtic, if I can find it again, about Snowden that you had. But I do want to touch upon the shooting, too. The shooting from an Afghan immigrant, right, that happened recently, just a few days ago. So I'm not going to dive deep into this because I haven't followed this story that close. But what I did want to say about it is I think the lead in this story is totally being missed, because what you had was an Afghan immigrant shooting 2 National Guard forces close to the White House, I believe, right? And one died recently, just a horrendous murder, right? And just like as always, you have the establishment Republicans saying, this is what the refugee crisis shows us. This is why we need mass deportations. This is why we need to crack down on illegal immigration. And fair enough, maybe that's so. I don't think that Afghan refugees are the highest percentage in terms of illegal immigrants. But here's why this misses the plot. Because information has come out about this individual, that this individual was literally an elite force in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban and trained by the CIA. There's a CIA connection with this shooter too. And we're just going to bury that lead and talk about immigration as if it has no bearing on this story, right? That there's a CIA connection with this guy. Came over after being trained to fight the Taliban by the CIA, and we're just not going to talk about that part, right? Well, I'd say that's the lead of this story, right? It's never used as the lead to say, hey, we need to abolish the CIA. The establishment will never say that. The establishment will just talk about immigration as a crisis, use this incident to paint everyone in the same way. Whatever you think about immigration, I have my own thoughts. I've talked about it in the past. It's not one of my leading issues to talk about. I care more about financial corruption and the deep state and the foreign policy stuff, as you guys know. But regardless of how you feel on immigration, man, the CIA connection sure does seem to be a really interesting and important element in this whole thing to me. And that's why Republicans are burying the lead on that too. We'll see how that story develops. There's a potential for more to come out about that. But that's what I think about it, and I'd love to hear what you guys say. So that's really what I wanted to say tonight in terms of the news. Thanks for bearing with me on that. And I will answer the super chats. So feel free to drop in super chats. If you have any, I'll answer the question specifically. Otherwise, I'm going to be selective about what I answer. Okay. So Maggie Bonilla. Dave, I really think they're going to attack Venezuela tonight. What do you think? Well, I have to be honest, I thought they were going to attack Venezuela earlier than tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens at any point. And Anthony Aguilar last night said, I'm going to make a prediction. Before Christmas, we're bombing sites in Venezuela. And that, that seems very likely. It seems incredible that Trump said, in a press conference, Maduro has offered us everything to get out of a war. Well, I'd say take everything. Avert war at all costs. Don't just indiscriminately bomb all these ships without the congressional authority to do it, without a war declaration, without due process whatsoever, with no evidence. What you would typically do is ships coming into harbor, they could be raided and searched with a warrant, using due process. You get a judge to, look at an itemized list of things that you want to search and or seize, and then you allow for that. Well, that's not what happens under the United States government today. They pervert the constitutional guidelines in every case, bombing these people in multitudes and saying Venezuela somehow is the root of the fentanyl crisis. No fentanyl comes from Venezuela. No cocaine really comes from Venezuela either. Some moves through it, but really it's like Colombia and Ecuador that are the epicenters of, cocaine distribution. That all is a ruse. That whole narco-terrorism, propaganda ploy is an attempt to link the war on terror with the war on drugs to, combine the worst two government wars together into a scheme that seems designed for another regime change operation. And that's what I don't want to see. Not whatsoever. And I think two things are at play here. It is oil reserves, which Venezuela has a lot of them. The U.S. would love to get its contractors in there. They'd love to remove Maduro. That's who Marco Rubio despises. But the element I think very few people are talking about in this, and I think this is probably the most integral objective of the United States, is to keep Venezuela out of the BRICS alliance. They think that this is going to do that. I think that this has the potential, especially if it's a failed regime change operation, to solidify Venezuela's entry into BRICS. Because the United States doesn't want both Brazil and Venezuela in BRICS. And Venezuela has applied to be in BRICS. If you're not sure what BRICS is, it's the alliance that's constituted between China, Russia, India, Iran, Syria, Brazil. There's other countries that are entrants in it, and there's more that I'm not thinking of right now. But they're formed kind of a counterbalance to NATO in the same way that the Warsaw Pact was a counterbalance to NATO. We really have a second Cold War here, and it's at the behest of the war makers in Washington that this is coming to fruition. It really is horrifying to think that, these countries are aligning against the United States in a way that we haven't seen entangling alliances ever align against the U.S. since the Cold War and the unipolar moment, which was totally squandered, by the way. So that's what I think. I think that the bombing could happen at any time. I'm just not sure when. 08070814 Dancer, thank you for joining as a member here. Duchess, thanks again for your super chat. Celtic, thank you so much for your donation. I'm going to get to your question, Celtic, because you asked one. Up here. I think it had to do with Snowden. And if you can repeat your question about Snowden, Celtic, I'll get to it. I might have misplaced that one. Oh, Lord Hybrid, what is going on, man? Hey, thank you so much for the super chat. $50 super chat from Lord Hybrid. Thank you so much. He's a Bears fan, but that's all right, because he just put $50 into the Liberty Vault coffer. That's all good. My Chicago Bears gonna melt you guys' cheese. Do you think Massie would survive if he won? Do you think he would be strong enough to fix the problem, or would they take control of him like Trump? Wow, great question. So first of all, congrats on the big win against the Eagles. That is a significant win, man. I did not see Chicago going into Philadelphia and beating the Eagles. That's big time. That is hard for me to handle as a Packers fan, to watch that. It's going to be an interesting divisional rivalry again. But congrats to your Bears. The Bears are looking way better than basically anyone thought, including me. As far as your question about Massie, it's a really good question. So he couldn't win. He just can't win. He can't get through the filtration process and the nomination process. In both parties, that's been true. You look at what happened to the Republicans in 2012 and 2008. It was Romney versus Ron Paul. Ron Paul had a lot of delegates out of Iowa and such, and the Republicans amended the rules to make sure his delegates didn't count as much. There are other problems too, but they do everything they can to diminish the influence of these candidates that are true dissidents. and Romney prevailed. You saw the same thing with the Democrats in 2016. A Democratic civil war of sorts between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, in which Bernie Sanders, for whatever you want to say about him, he did have a lot of populist support. You know, Cenk Uygur talks a lot about how, you know, his biggest problem was he refused to attack Hillary Clinton. He was way too nice. It just didn't bode well for him. But I don't really think that's the root of it. I think that the Democratic machine wouldn't let him win. For the same reason they didn't want an open primary in which, you know, you wouldn't get Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. They wanted one of those two. They're perfect deep state puppets. So in the hypothetical world that Massie would win, man, the deep state would want to kill him like they wanted to kill JFK. I just think that's true. And that's a tough position to want what I think is like a unprecedented, virtuous politician to be in. I personally know Massie. I love Massie. He's a hero. So I wouldn't want him to be in that situation. And ultimately, no person, even if it was a president, could stop what is going on now by himself. Certainly he'd have influence in the executive branch. He's so much more principled than Trump in every single way. His entire career is proof of that. But at the same time, he'd have congressional opposition to him. He'd have deep state opposition to him. Everything would be vetoed. I'm all for that. I'm all for gridlock. That's about the best we can hope for. But ultimately, against the federal government, I think we need to concentrate locally. Nullify the immoral and egregious mandates of the federal government, the extensions of tyranny from there, from outside of the federal government, through, you know, laws that prohibit guard forces from being called up by the president. It's called Defend the Guard legislation. That's a model I really support. There's nullification legislation that would prevent, like, the FDA from using federal law enforcement to enforce prohibition in particular states. Some states just ignore this when it came to marijuana, and they're not going to try to enforce that. But you can have other legislation that prohibits them from enforcing the restrictions on other drugs. These are just examples. You can apply this to virtually every issue. Gun control. We had Idaho and Butch Otter sign legislation, I think 2014 or something, that prohibited all future gun control restrictions from the federal government. Like, Idaho has to use its resources, its law enforcement, to stand as a shield in front of the federal government if they try to enforce that. So that's what I think it's going to take. It's going to take massive education efforts, non-compliance efforts that one man in Washington can't solve, even if it's a president. But thanks again for your super chat, Lord Hybrid. I really appreciate it. Random Traveler might be right with JFK 2.0. Man, that's not what I want from Thomas Massie. So thanks for that question. Huge super chat. Really appreciate that. Guys, drop more super chats if you want me answering the questions. And I'm going to look for Celtic's question again if she put it in here. Because Celtic is the best. Oh, here it is. So, Celtic, thanks for reposting your question. Isn't it interesting that Snowden is safer than Russia than he might be in the USA? And God bless Julian Assange. So, both things, absolutely. God bless Julian Assange. Indeed, Julian Assange is a hero. Julian Assange did not get justice. Julian Assange deserves a full pardon. Not just, you know, pleading guilty to journalism effectively, which is what he did. He deserves a full pardon from the president and medals to his great service to the country for exposing U.S. war crimes, among other, you know, revelations of hidden deep state corruption. As far as Snowden, yeah, it is kind of interesting that he's safer in Russia than he might be in the U.S. He is public enemy number one in the world to the deep state. They want him dead. They tried to throw Espionage Act prosecution against him. That's World War I era legislation that prohibited people from protesting the Great War, World War I. And they tried to apply that to Snowden and Assange to stick it to them, ruin their lives. Snowden was on the way, I think, to Ecuador, right, before his passport was taken while he was in Russia en route back from Hong Kong, and then he planned to go to Ecuador, I believe, and that's why he's stuck there. But yeah, he does seem safer there than in the United States. Thank you for your super chats, Celtic, and your continued support. Celtic supports this channel more than basically almost anyone. Constantly see her in the replies, constantly see her super chats, her membership. Really appreciate her. And Lord Hybrid, you're the man right now with that big ol' super chat. So if you guys have any more super chats, feel free to leave them. Otherwise, I'm going to be a little selective here about questions. Random Traveler said, what do you guys think will happen if Maduro from Venezuela goes to Israel and kiss the wall? Hey, there's one escape hatch for Maduro. It's to kiss the wall. It's to go to Jerusalem right now, kiss the wall, regime change off. Regime change canceled. We can work with this guy now. This guy's on our side. This guy's civilized. This guy realizes that Israel has a right to defend itself. If Maduro does that, man, I think you've uncovered it, Random. That's what Maduro has to do to survive. Fly to Jerusalem, kiss the wall, to go to a few Holocaust museums, do everything you have to do. Say, AIPAC is the most wondrous institution in human history, and he's going to be good to go. That's the solution. I think you figured it out. Yeah, I think you figured it out. Yeah, Ash of the Dead, welcome. Good to see you too, Ash. Thanks for all the support. Pray I don't amend it further. That's right. That's what Darth Vader said in Empire Strikes Back. That's what Zelensky was saying. But he did amend it further, and the U.S. government was totally fine with that, and we're not going to get a peace deal because of it. All right, let's see. I'm going to look at more questions here. By the way, this stuff is good. IBC's Black Cherry. Great stuff. IBC rules. I like their root beer too, but I really like the Black Cherry here. What can we do? Print more money. Well, that's always the solution, regardless of which party, Clay. It's always print more money, no matter who's in power. They don't see a problem with that, even though it's the most unfair tax because it's not legislated. It's just an oligarchy at the Fed that decides that. And it's the most harmful to people on fixed incomes and the poor because it hurts the purchasing power of your money. That makes poor people more vulnerable than ever. So inflation is a true plague in every single respect. And I wish more dissidents focused on that. And really what is at the root of that, and it's central banking. In the age before central banking, legal tender currency actually tended to improve in purchasing power, if you can believe that. There was deflation, if you can believe that. Not so much anymore. All right, any more super chats? Is Ramaswamy a Zionist? Vance in Ohio, all the chess pieces moving, go Massie. Well, during his campaign, Ramaswamy said various things. It did seem to be like he was more Zionist than not, but he definitely didn't seem to be like the most ardent Zionist. He was preaching an America First meant kind of campaign. Of course, Trump was too, and what does that show us, right? But Ramaswamy, his political rise was funded to some extent by Les Wexner. And there's things about Ramaswamy I really like, but Les Wexner is the guy that bestowed his fortune over to Jeffrey Epstein and gave Jeffrey Epstein kind of business control over a lot of his assets, gave him power of attorney, etc. And he funded Ramaswamy's political rise to some extent. That's interesting. It's going to be interesting if Ramaswamy vies for power with J.D. Vance in 2028. The two are close. They're friends. But I think both have presidential administrations, and I like Ramaswamy more personally out of those two if I have to pick. But Ramaswamy does seem at least to be a quasi-Zionist. That wasn't his worst foreign policy flaw, though. He said we should take the warfare state to the drug cartels in Mexico. I just think that was crazy. Random says if Thomas runs for president, they'll be spreading billions against him. Thomas will probably have a hard time to getting to sponsor to campaign. Yeah, they'll bring the House against him just like his congressional campaign. But we'll see. The Streisand effect might launch Massie into the Oval Office. I'd run as his VP. Yeah, they're gonna strike if he runs. He will be Streisanded like Nick Fuentes is being Streisand affected to the moon right now. And you do get a lot of Streisand effect with Thomas Massie right now. The Democrats can't help but love him when he sticks up for Trump. They hated him when he stuck up for, fiscal sanity under the Biden regime. But they'll support him, when he stands up to Trump on the Epstein cover-up and stuff like that. But when Trump targets people like Massie and Rand Paul and Marjorie Taylor Greene, it does have the chance to up their profiles, especially when the American people are so much in support of hindering Trump from this Epstein cover-up. It's just the truth. The American people are not on Trump's side on that. Go Braveheart. Ramaswampy, though. Yeah, a lot of people don't like him. I think he's better than Vance, personally, on almost everything. And both of them support H-1Bs. So if you're talking about H-1Bs, that's Vance and Ramaswamy. Ramaswampy and Vance, whatever you want to call them. Go Pat, go Lee, you got it, man. Israel has the right to offensively defend itself. That's what Maduro would say. If Maduro wants out of this mess, right? Kiss the wall, praise APEC, good to go. Lord Hybrid, thanks again, man. I appreciate you. Wall of shame, that's right. Random traveler, stop doxing me. No, I'm just kidding. I make that public. My name is Dave Benner. I'm on Twitter, dbenner83 on Twitter if you want to follow me. Would love to have you guys all follow me right now on Twitter. I drop hot takes on Twitter. They're hot as bleep. As the kids say, or they said 15 years ago, my takes are lit. Yeah, they're lit. Sorry, I'll try to stop the dad jokes, even though I'm not a dad. I'm a dog dad 2 times over. But yeah, my takes are lit on Twitter. All right. Julian got MK Ultra. I don't really know. They tried to destroy him. I don't know about MK Ultra, CIA program in the U.S. He's not a U.S. citizen, not really been here much, I don't think. Jimmy Dore for president. Would support that too. Don't agree with Jimmy on lots of economic stuff, but Jimmy's a hero too. Douglas McGregor, definitely Secretary of Defense. Or I'm sorry, Secretary of War. But Douglas McGregor needs to be Secretary of War. For sure. Musk's America Party. It doesn't... I don't know how serious he seems about that, man. Like, there's a PAC and stuff going for it, but I don't know that Musk wants to devote that much energies into ballot access and such with the third parties that exist. It's not clear to me that they're really serious about putting up ballot access in 50 states with a new political party. Musk could easily fund that. If he wanted to do that, he could easily fund it. But to me, like, from his appearance on Rogan, he basically said straight up, like, this isn't fixable from inside of Washington. And you hate to hear that, but it's hard to deny that. It's hard to refute that at all. Yeah, McGregor 100%. And spoiler alert, guys, I know McGregor's media guy. I'm trying to get McGregor onto my show to interview him. I really hope it happens. He seems open to interviewing on a lot of people's channels, including those that are smaller than mine, so I hope I get him on. I love McGregor. I spoke at the same event as him once and walked by him, but he was always talking to other people, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But we're going to try to get him on. I think I can do it. McGregor's brilliant. And he like me, he loves like foreign policy history. That's something a lot of people like that talk about foreign policy. You know, a lot of people do like the historical aspect to it, but he loves the intersection of foreign policy and history like me. So I think we have a lot of crossover that could make for an interesting conversation there. Yeah, McGregor's an old guy, but he sure is wise. He sure is wise, man. And he gets it. He's one of the only guys that's like that old and on the right, but also like very anti-Israel in terms of the U.S.-Israel alliance. Alliance, I'm going to put that in quotes, as I always should, right? He's very good on that issue. And not a lot of older conservative people are, man. It's fewer and far between. It's mostly the younger dissidents that are. And there's exceptions. There's people that watch this channel, probably in this chat right now, that are exceptions. But McGregor's one of the good ones on there. If it was me, man, I told some of you guys this in comments. Jeffrey Sachs would for sure be my Secretary of State if I was president. For sure. 100%. Smart guy. We actually disagree on economics quite a bit. He's a Keynesian. I'm an Austrian economist, right? But he's brilliant when it comes to peace and diplomacy. He's much more of a globalist than I, but we end up in the same place because, you know, America first and actually avoiding entangling alliances is in his interest too. He bases it more on international consensus, and I don't give a crap about that. But he's very persuasive, very knowledgeable, very smart, and I would trust him 100% going into a diplomatic situation protecting the interests of the United States from entangling alliances, from sanction regimes, etc. I would love for him to be the Secretary of State, for sure. Hero. Jeffrey Sachs, hero. And by the way, he's so much better on China than the distant right. So much better on China than the distant right that wants to rattle sabers with another nuclear power, maybe shift resources from Eastern Europe and from Ukraine to do it, build up a bigger Asia fleet, a bigger empire building scheme in the Asian region, which they have tried to do. They have spent more money, the Pentagon has, in recent years on that. It's not something I want, but when you see a lot of these right-wing politicians that are so against funding Ukraine, it's not always a principled stance, actually, for many of them. It's that they want to shift those resources, not cut down the Pentagon budget whatsoever from the $1 trillion budget it has, but they want to shift those resources over to China, make Taiwan into the new Ukraine, fight a new proxy war over that, when it's absurd. They act like China's waging war and trying to build a global empire. They haven't invaded a country since I was born. It's absurd. It's stupid right-wing propaganda. Scott Horton will definitely come on my show, and he would be an incredible Homeland Security advisor. Scott's a good friend of mine. We text all the time. He will come for an interview. We'll have Scott. A lot of people don't know who he is, but he's getting a lot more publicity because he was on both Tucker Carlson. He's been on Young Turks. He's been on Piers Morgan a lot now. His episode, and Lex Friedman. If you want to know a crash course on history to learn everything that you want to know about foreign policy, listen to the Lex Friedman interview with Scott Horton, or Lex Friedman. It's a 10-hour interview. The whole thing will blow your mind out of your cranium. It's so good. But Scott is great. Yeah, Scott is goated, man. Dan is right. I didn't know who Sachs was until he went on Tucker. Now I actively read his articles, watch the old lectures about Operation Timber Sycamore, etc. So if you're not sure what Operation Timber Sycamore is, I'm glad you dropped that, Dan. It's a topic close to my cold heart, right? Operation Timber Sycamore, in my estimation, is the most evident way in which our political system has been complicit in literal treason in my lifetime. So what Operation Timber Sycamore was there was a desire in the clean break strategy to regime change Syria. It was under the control of a guy named Assad. He was an Alawite. That's a minority of the Shia. Israel didn't like him. They didn't like him. They would prefer the Sunnis in power. But guess who the Sunnis were in Syria at that time? ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So was the U.S. going to get directly involved right away? Not really. It looked like they would for a while. Obama did some bombing of Assad, but ultimately they decided on having the CIA being the primary driver of that regime change effort. And it didn't fully come to fruition until December of 2024, by the way, with Turkish support and Erdogan supporting that overthrow too. But for over a decade, the United States conducted the CIA operation, and there are classified documents telling what I'm going to tell you here, showing that the U.S. poured in $15 billion into Syria. The cover was that this is U.S. aid. This is just humanitarian aid. But of course, what happens with a lot of the U.S. aid that poured into countries, this happened in Ukraine too, by the way, in 2014, was it was smuggled by warlords in Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Guess who one of those warlords is? He's the current leader of Syria. His name was Jolani, and now he's named al-Shara. He just went to the White House 2 weeks ago or something. Just absurd, right? So you had Trump shaking the hand of the founder of the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria that was put into power partially because of a CIA operation and regime change under Operation Timber Sycamore. That's what we get from our politicians. And this started just a decade removed from 9/11, right? Remember the terrorists we were fighting against? Well, we had to have a Patriot Act and a DHS, and we had to up the Pentagon budget. We had to expand the surveillance state to really stick it to the terrorists. And by the way, if you weren't on board with this whole agenda, you were a terrorist too. You're either with us or against us. Well, guess what? They supported the terrorists in Syria at the behest of Israel that preferred Assad and Jolani and the Sunni militants over the Alawites and Assad. That's what you get. Literal treason under Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution. It's arming the enemy. It's aiding and abetting the enemy, and it's so clear. It's just so absurd. Yeah, Max Blumenthal. I would love to get Max on the show. I think I can do that too. Max is great. I hope I can get in contact with him or Aaron Mate. Would love to have either of them too. What's my faith? I am a Christian. I am a Church of Christ Christian. I attend services weekly. I participate in worship. I lead worship in several ways. I do prayers. I oversee communion. I've taught the adult class. Actually, I just taught the adult class on repentance 2 weeks ago at my local congregation in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm really passionate about that. Sometimes it comes out in my videos. Other times it doesn't. I think it's really important to be honest about that, so that's where I am. I would love to have Glenn Greenwald on the show. Glenn Greenwald's really big. I hope I could get him, but he might be willing. He's retweeted me a few times and stuff. He might know who I am. But, yeah, Sachs is Jewish. And that's something I bring up. You guys have heard me do this a lot. And for the racialists, they really hate this, but I don't care, because this is what I think, is that the best critics of Israel are disproportionately Jewish. And Jeff Sachs is the perfect example, but it's not just him. It's Norman Finkelstein, and it's Aaron Mate, and it's Glenn Greenwald, and it's Dave Smith, and it's Max Blumenthal, and it's Katie Halper, and it's Noam Chomsky. He was terrible on some issues, especially COVID, but he was a very good, persuasive critic of Israel. The best critics of Israel have been disproportionately Jewish, whether I like it or not. I just think that's legit. And their kind of assertions on it and their studies on it and their persuasive power on it is on a different level too, because it's not as easy for the regime to just stick it on them like, oh, that's just the obvious anti-Semite, right? You can just excuse whatever they have to say about being critical toward Israel because they're just anti-Semitic. It's like, well, no, if you're going to say that to Norman Finkelstein, he's the son of Holocaust survivors. So good luck, persuading people of that one. All right. Any other super chats, guys? If you have specific questions in mind, please send super chats. And don't feel obligated, though. I'm just saying that I'll prioritize your questions. Otherwise, I'm going to be really selective. Okay. Bryce earlier said Gavin Newsom might come off as smooth-talking, handsome Machiavellian leader who lives a sunny vineyard in Napa Valley. I think he will win in 2028 as long as he picks up a VP from the Midwest. Right now, man, the Republicans are trying to do whatever they can to get the Democrats elected. And Newsom, we might be looking at a President Newsom or President AOC the way this thing's headed, man. Because the MAGA civil war is heating up. It's revolving around Israel and how that seeps into every issue, including Epstein, including Iran, including the Israel First mentality, Huckabee meeting with Pollard. This really is rupturing the right in ways that's trickling into domestic issues. And yeah, not every American pays attention to it, but it's affecting everyone in some way with the debt and inflation. All this causes with giving them $25 billion since October 7th, that has an effect on things. And when you're allowing that to influence hate speech laws in the states, it just gets too absurd. People are noticing. They're noticing at the gas pump and the grocery store to some extent. It's not over only Israel, but it is spending. And really, it's the perversion of deprioritizing your community and your state in favor of Israel. That's what's causing people to turn away. Hey, Liberty Vault, do you think the world will abandon the U.S.? Well, the world basically has abandoned the U.S. No one wants to do diplomacy with us anymore, for the most part, it seems like. They know what that means. Now, how could you trust the United States if they're going to try to lure Iran into a war with the stated objective of actually negotiating a new nuclear deal? So they use that ruse to literally collaborate with Israel to bomb Iran. The world watched that. Who's going to be trustworthy to the United States? And look at how they built up the NATO expansion leading up to Ukraine. There's no way that the world trusts the United States, especially not the BRICS countries. And Trump's done everything he can to encourage, more solidification on the BRICS side. The U.S. has its allies per se, but who would trust the United States? But you can't say who would trust Starmer and Macron and Mayers too, right? So there's a lot of that from the West. Everyone's going to suffer from it. But yeah, we might be looking at Newsom. Who knows? I think Whitmer has some scandals to her name too, and she's another prospective presidential candidate. She's not as smooth talker as Gavin Newsom. Even though Gavin Newsom probably has more scandals, he can probably cover it up more by smooth talking. But I don't know. You have Kamala Harris into Newsom, 2 Californians in a row. Californians seem to a lot of Americans more out of touch than other Democrats would be. It's interesting to see what'll happen there. Savage, Dave, do you think John Kiriakou will get pardoned by Trump? No, but he should be. I don't think Trump will pardon any kind of adversary to the deep state for the rest of his tenure. He's locked in for a second term. He doesn't have to, get into the controversy of what that would mean for the Washington establishment to do that. He could, but Trump's objective is really to serve himself, and it seems the interest of the deep state. It's not the same dynamic as it was in his first administration, where he was fighting the FBI and CIA over the Russiagate fiasco for 2 to 3 years over this absurd notion that he was collaborating with Putin from the United States, even while he was aiding Ukraine and slapping sanctions on Russia and condemning Putin for giving Snowden safe haven and withdrawing from the INF. He doesn't really have the deep state trying to take him down anymore. Like, his guys are the deep state. It's Tulsi Gabbard and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and John Ratcliffe at the CIA. It's his guys. He's not fighting the deep state, and I just don't think he will do that. He should. Kiriakou's a total hero. I'm glad Kiriakou has a podcast, by the way. He would be a badass politician. He has a great voice too, man. He presents really well. He's a great storyteller too. Okay, Netanyahu, you tried to do a super chat but couldn't. It's all good. I'll answer your question because you signed up as a member anyways. If you want to join, guys, click the join button below. You get access to all my videos before they go live if you do it. Can you do a world history show for 4th graders? No. I can't, man. It sucks. My degree is in history education, and I never plan to teach that young because the complexities of what I get into is just probably too high level. I would struggle teaching a younger audience. I really would. So God bless the teachers that do that well. And I don't think many of them are in public schools, but I don't think I could do that. Especially when you're talking about Israel and genocide and stuff. It just seems really hard. I'm sure you could do it in ways that are moral and ethical, but I don't think I could do it. What do you think of a Thomas Massie Rand Paul presidential run for 2028? I'd support it 100%. It'd get me to vote for once in a federal election. I talked a little bit about the prospect of a Thomas Massie presidential run. I'd support it wholeheartedly. Dave Smith went on one of my friends Liam McCollum's podcast recently, and he said, dude, this is the hill for dissidents to get behind, is you cannot allow Massie to get removed. Just think about the precedent that sets. Even if you don't like Massie, even if you're a hard leftist that really disagrees with him on economics, what message it would send if Miriam Adelson can just buy this congressional seat, right? Because of Massie's opposition to Israel and his support for uncovering, getting to the bottom and opposing Trump on the Epstein cover-up. What would it say if she can do that? It's unacceptable. This is our hill. This is what we need to do, first and foremost. Presidential race, after that, that's a new consideration after that, but this is the hill to stand behind Massie on. Thucydides, Machiavelli, Hobbes, etc. Yeah, absolutely. Have you studied the political philosophy regarding Real Republic? Absolutely. Everyone should read Thucydides and Machiavelli and Hobbes. And my personal favorite social compact theorist, John Locke. I think, libertarians are much more Lockean than anyone else. I've also studied Kant and Rousseau. I have all those books back here, man. I'm a chronic reader. That's my thing. This is the hill. That's right. Yeah, I'm a chronic reader. Everyone should read Enlightenment philosophers, social compact theory, real politics, etc. James Burnham's The Machiavellians. That's one book that's always cited by that. I mean, really disagree with the premise of Machiavellianism to that level that Burnham puts forth in his book. But that's the style of modern politics, right? That's how people gain power over others. Victoria, welcome to the stream. Common sense, if Massie gets down, I'm down for Canada to become the 51st state. Nice name, by the way, Common Sense. That's the moniker, of course, of Thomas Paine, who wrote Common Sense. Famous short pamphlet that lit the fuse of the fire that became the American Revolution. There's someone I know that wrote a biography on it. There's someone I know that wrote a biography on Thomas Paine. Actually, here it is. I wrote the most complete biography on Thomas Paine. Very proud of this. This came out in 2018. I was a nobody at that time, didn't have a YouTube channel, but you can get this book if you want, and sign copies if you want. It makes a great Christmas present from the link in the description. It'll shoot you out to the site. On the site, it has a box. If you want me to sign it to a particular person, I'll do that. But you can order it from the link in the description down there. But Thomas Paine. In every society is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. That's what Thomas Paine said. Another one of my favorite quotes of his is, money is money and paper is paper, and all the invention of mankind cannot make them otherwise. Thomas Paine disbelieved in fiat currency that rules the world today because of its inability to hold value over time when the central bank can keep printing it. Truth freeze. Paine was an anti-Christian. He was a deist, indeed. He disavowed all the miraculous aspects of the Bible, believed that the prophecies were something of a hallucination, discounted all the miracles. He believed that Jesus served as kind of a moral guide, but nothing more. That's all truthful, but you can also, even if you are religious, you can still acknowledge Paine's merits, and there were many, but I wrote all about that in my book. Paine's The Age of Reason 1 and 2 were two of the things that put him in the crosshairs of the political establishment of his day. It was that and his basically calling George Washington a fraud at the end of his life. I won't go into that story, but that is detailed in my book as well. What's your position on the conception of the state, personal fiction, moral perspective? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, the state is by definition a monopoly on force, and if there's any question, if you're in a place and you're not sure who the government is, it's the entity that has impunity to things that would be criminal if you did it, like murder, stealing from someone. That is the state. If you want like the best synopsis on what the state truly is, read Murray Rothbard's Anatomy of the State. It's really thin, and it tells you everything. Also, Bastiat's The Law. Those two books really characterize my feelings toward the state better than anything, and both are very short reads. You could read them over morning coffee, both of those. All right, let's see. I'm going to read a few more questions here. We're going over an hour, but that's fine. I can stay for a while more. And feel free if you want to drop super chats, I'll definitely read your question. Vance is Palantir. Well, he's connected to Palantir and Peter Thiel, that's for sure. His political rise was kind of orchestrated by Thiel and the PayPal Mafia, as Whitney Webb calls them. And that's horrifying. Palantir, for anyone that doesn't know, is kind of a rising tech company that started in, I believe, 2003 with seed money from the CIA. Technically, it was the CIA's financial wing called In-Q-Tel. Funded and was the first client of Palantir, the only client of Palantir for something like 5 to 6 years. And now what Palantir's goal is to collate data, use AI to make kind of sweeping calculations about things related to Americans and what they do. The objective is to collate every bank transaction and every driver's license and every tax return information and any census information that they receive from individuals and use that as a weapon against you. They want to collate everything that the NSA has on you with every other government agency together and use AI to really usher in dystopian schemes. One of them is a pre-crime program to identify criminals before they commit crimes. Like to get all these characteristics and then predict and focus law enforcement efforts on people they think will commit crimes. Like Minority Report. It literally is from the story Minority Report. They're also using their AI technology in collaboration with Israel to decide who lives and dies in Gaza. Anthony Aguilar actually talked a little bit about that last night. It's horrifying. Vance is tightly woven into this apparatus, and I hope he faces questions about it leading into 2028. And I'm white-pilled about that because, not about his connections to it, but I think that he's not going to be able to escape these questions. They're going to come up, and as Seth Dillon said, he's going to have to answer these questions as follows. Yes, I acknowledge Peter Thiel is Satan, but here's why that's a good thing. I just love Tim Dillon. That bit is one of my favorites, but that's what he said on Rogan. So, yeah. All right, let's see here. Yeah, drop super chats. Victoria, you have the right attitude. I'm not a professor, but I was thinking about becoming one for a while. I have a history education degree, but I never went back for my master's or anything. I'm glad that I had the path I did. I was in IT for about 8 years, and then I was in a financial advisory firm for something like 9 years, and then I made YouTube videos. President AOC, I'm telling you, man, the train's gonna be there. She's already removed the pronouns from her bio. She seems serious. She removed them last year, I think. That kind of created some discussion because wokeness was dying to some extent, or the popularity of wokeness. It seemed like even the left was willing to discard some of that, the liberals. And she took those pronouns out of her bio. Sorry, I'm kind of like sneezing a little bit. And because of that, people said, oh, she's serious. She's ready for a presidential run. I think there's something to that, man, because it's just so unpalatable from so many Americans, even liberals, that just think wokeness is retarded. And it's such a niche of a niche to really adhere to a lot of those principles that really combine the worst aspects of postmodernism, extreme political correctness, and other factors. Let's see. Tim Jones, right on, man. That's awesome to hear. You were baptized into the Church of Christ. Right on, man. All right. Any other questions, guys? Otherwise, we're going to probably wrap it up in a little bit here. Any super chats? I was hoping Sawyer would come back. If you guys were here last weekend, I was hoping Sawyer would come back so he could buy me a Lamborghini, help finish paying off my mortgage, and make me financially set for the rest of my life. Alas, doesn't seem like it's happening tonight, but that's all right. Did Megyn Kelly said if AOC ran for president, she would also run for president? I don't know. That's interesting. A Megyn Kelly presidency. I mean, I don't know, man. I think the base loves Vance the most, and he's the guy to beat right now. He's the heir apparent. They've set him up for that. They want lucrative contracts for Palantir and Anduril and the PayPal Mafia, so... Random Traveler, do you remember him, man? Sawyer Kaufman, dude. All I know is sometimes you get an angel come into your life like that and shower you lavishly with gifts, and that was Sawyer Kaufman last week, right? Whitmer can't handle the white-hot spotlight. Vance would dismantle her. I think Vance would be way better in a debate, don't get me wrong. And Vance presents pretty well. I hate to say it, he does. He presented very well on Rogan. He's good at speaking, for sure. But I don't like him. I don't agree with him. 4 times the funky. Hey, thanks for the super chat. You're a Bears fan too, man. There's a lot of Bears fans hanging out in my. I'm interested in that. Well, you became a member somehow, and you're a Bears fan. Like, isn't that like kryptonite to Superman or something? You're a Libertarian Packers fan, but I would unite with anyone to do right and with nobody to do wrong. Actually, that was Frederick Douglass that said that, and I'm with you, man. Like, when it's on the wars and stuff about the deep state and corruption, I'm totally on board with dissident leftists. You guys know that. I talk about that a lot. And sometimes, yeah, I will get into, like, economic arguments in my comments from time to time. I'll talk about economics and my standpoint with it, which is Rothbardian, Austrian economics. But, dude, I'm totally with you. We can set aside those things. Neither of us have to give up our principles or compromise our values in any way if we say, hey, well, let's just unite the way that the regime doesn't want us to unite on this one thing. And that's opposing, the entangling alliances, the endless wars, the Israel first mentality. Let's do that. Hell yeah. We can do that together. Thanks 4 times the funky. Couldn't agree with you more. Outside of the Bears thing, but hey, that's fine. Historical rivalry. The Bears-Packers is the greatest NFL rivalry in history. At least it's basically the longest one. I'm biased, one of my teams is one of those two, but it is one of the most historic rivalries for sure. Richard Namulala, Chalmers Johnson's Blowback trilogy books are great. Okay. I haven't read those. I'm not real familiar with that, but I appreciate that. Celtic, stay humble and kind. You're not an apprentice. Thank you. I'll try to stay humble and kind. If I am. Oh, Trippy Bro. Thanks, man. Trippy Bro had the $10 super chat. I really appreciate that. What's your opinion on Ron Paul, Rand Paul, and Senator John Kennedy? Ron Paul's the greatest political hero of my time. That's what I think about him. I have respect that's higher for no one other than Ron Paul. He truly is that to me. He wasn't actually the first libertarian figure that I stumbled upon. Murray Rothbard was, if you can believe that or not. But Ron Paul really lit the fuse of a fire in a populist libertarian way. When he told the truth when it mattered most, when it was most controversial, he stood up there with Rudy Giuliani and said, they came over here because we're over there. When everyone wanted him to say that, no, we need to spread democracy through the Middle East, they attacked us for our freedom, he said, no, it's because of our absurd foreign policy. It's because we killed and killed and killed overseas, supported Israel at all costs, ushered in a sanctions regime against Iraq, killing multitudes over there, invading Iraq, displacing people. It's for supporting Israel at all costs and militarizing the Arabian Peninsula. And by the way, all this is confirmed by what bin Laden himself said. Not saying trust bin Laden when it comes to morality, but that was the reason that they attacked the United States. He said that on the debate stage, and it was powerful. He didn't just say that. He talked about ending the Fed and, curtailing the excesses of the deep state. So I love Ron Paul. Rand Paul I like too, but Ron Paul, there's no one like him. Rand Paul does embody some of the same characteristics, but I don't think he's as good in terms of his philosophical purity per se, and you might say that's a deficiency, but no, I think Ron Paul just maintained virtue down the line. I can't even think of something that I really differ on than Ron Paul. I'm sure there are some things. Senator John Kennedy, I don't know him enough. He's in Louisiana, right? He's got an interesting voice, that's for sure. Some things I've seen him say sound reasonable, but he wouldn't be someone that's like I would connect with that much. So thanks for your super chat, Trippy. Thanks for your super chat, Richard, Namala, and 4 times the funky. Any more super chats, guys? Otherwise, I'll keep it going. Like, I don't want to make it sound like, I'm just here for super chats, because this is just fun. I'll stick here for a while, but I will prioritize super chats. And just, I guess, while I'm waiting on potential more of them, just wanted to inform you guys, like, I'm not opposed to doing this fairly regularly. I can't commit to doing this every single weekend, but I will try to do it from time to time, and I will try to get more interviews down the line. People have requested that. A lot of my members have said, hey, I'd like you to interview these people. I'm going to try to make an effort to do that. A lot of it is limited by my contacts, but I've reached the position where my platform is considerable now, I guess, compared to many others. There are people in this space that have about the same size platform that I do, or even smaller, getting really good guests. So I need to just ramp up my efforts in doing that a little bit better. Yeah, I do remember when they called Ron Paul an isolationist, which is ironic. And you guys have maybe heard me talk about this in some of my videos, is that it's such a stupid classification to call what they're calling isolationism exactly that. It's like, no, the people you're calling isolationists actually want to talk to foreign countries. They want diplomacy with foreign countries. They generally want to trade with foreign countries. So that on its face is not isolationism. It's a demonization of the non-interventionists. Call them isolationists because, you know, you're just supposed to associate that with, you know, Neville Chamberlain, even though it was Neville Chamberlain that declared war on Germany. But we'll forget about that for right now. It's a way to just try to demean those people, to bring them down, to try to say that they're subhuman when it's actually, no, we just don't want to get into these absurd regime change efforts, you know, the kind that had us spending trillions of dollars over 4 presidents and hundreds of thousands of lives over 20 years to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. Maybe that's not the best thing that we should do. Maybe it's actually even counterintuitive to do that. That's who they call isolationists, i.e. the people that don't want to have it be, well, we're going to bomb someone. It's just a question of who we're going to bomb. The Ted Cruzes of the world, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the Mitch McConnells, you know the drill, the Marco Rubios, all the neocons and liberal establishment stooges. Marty Friedman or Chris Broderick, oh my gosh, those are two amazing guitarists. Both of them are fantastic. I love Nevermore and I love Megadeth. And Broderick played for Symphony X as well, right? Oh gosh, those are, I can't pick between those two. I feel like those are both at the same level. That's really hard for me to pick. Louis Vuitton. Liberty Vault means Louis Vuitton. It makes me think of The Hangover. That's a Louis Vuitton. That's a Louis Vuitton. You guys seen that movie? Alan, man. That's a Louis Vuitton. Yeah, I love Alice in Chains too, man. Love them. Jar of Flies album, or EP, is my favorite. Nutshell, dude. I love Alice in Chains. All right. Few more minutes, and I'll answer a few more questions. Don't be obligated, but if you have super chats, throw them in. Let's see. Scott Horton was on Candace talking about the Assad collapse as it was happening. I happened to be deployed in Syria when this all went down. But that episode of Candace is what turned me to the light. Awesome, man. Dan, that's awesome to hear. And he was. That's another appearance that Scott Horton had recently on a huge podcast. Candace Sons is one of the biggest podcasts in the world now. My boy Scott Horton was on there. Woo. Freaking awesome, man. That was so cool to see. Scott's a legend. Good guy, too. If you meet him in person, he loves to drink Dr. Peppers, and he'll talk to you as long as you want about foreign policy. Great guy. Let's see. All right. Oh! Duchess, hey, thank you so much. Duchess of Camelot, who I really appreciate. See her in the comments a lot. Are your Game of Thrones books first editions? I don't know. They're definitely not first editions because they're hardcovers when they uniformalized all the art between them. So, like, a Game of Thrones, right? Let me see which edition it is. This one, 2002, and the original came out in 96. A Game of Thrones came out in 96. This one's 2002, so it's not. Fire and Blood is. This one is. The House of the Dragon's based on. The Rise of the Dragon. This one is. So the newer ones are, but the older ones aren't. Yeah, Tom Woods is a friend too, man. I actually just saw Tom about a month and a half ago. We went to a Nashville Predators game. He would probably join at some point. He's a guy I hope more people would listen to. His podcast is great. He has great guests. He's been in the libertarian world forever. He's fantastic. Dabin Bach. Hey, man, thank you for doing what you do. I listen to your content every day at work. Wow, dude, thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. You know, people have had some nice things to say about, oh, dude, your content gets me through the day, or I love to listen to it. Even if it's like you fall asleep to it. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to take that as a compliment or not, but I do, because it's like, dude, you can listen to it any way you want. In fact, if you fall asleep to it, then it like guarantees you're going to listen to the whole thing, and then I'll get more ad opportunities with you. So I don't mind when people say, hey, I fall asleep to it. And some people have said that, but I appreciate that. Try to do Jimmy Dore. He supports alt media players. Yeah, dude, I love Jimmy. I will try to do that. I don't know. You'd think my platform's big enough to be attractive to some people, right? I would hope so. It's really grown in the last year like crazy. I did not think this channel would grow like this. Sludge Factory Unplugged is the best. Yeah, Alice in Chains' Unplugged album is good. I named our cat after Tyrion Lannister. Really? What a character to name a cat after. Tyrion Lannister, the cold-hearted, calculated Machiavellian ruler and Hand of the King. Tyrion Lannister is going to be my cat. That's cool, though. He's a good character. Charles Dance played a great Tyrion Lannister in the show. One of the best actors on Game of Thrones was Charles Dance. Awesome actor. I would 100% bring on Candace. Holy crap. It's just a matter of if I could get her to, man. She actually lives in Nashville, but I've never met her. And I live in Nashville, too. Some of you guys know that. But I've never met Candace. She's retweeted me a few times, too. She might know who I am, but I would, of course, have Candace Owens on the show. But I think I need to be aiming for people more at, like, my level, right? Like, you can shoot for the stars and hope it happens. I've seen Tucker Carlson on kind of smaller podcasts, but I don't have those connections yet, right? My cat was named Sansa. I mean, Sansa seems like a character that would be a better cat name, right? Dabbenbach, $5. Thank you so much, dude. Cheers, buddy. Interesting stuff you choose to cover, and your commentary is great too, dude. Seriously, really appreciate that, man. I'm glad you listen to it daily, dude. I wouldn't listen to me daily. I think you have to be a pretty big masochist for that, dude. Like, what are you thinking? No, I'm just kidding. I really appreciate it. And we got the fist bump from Celtic RN8, one of the biggest supporters of the channel throughout my duration here. I really appreciate that. Oh, dude, you're right. That was Tywin. Oh my gosh, dude, it must be getting too late. I was tired about Tywin, not Tyrion. Yeah, dude, I'm so dumb. I thought he wrote Tywin, but you're right. Tyrion was a dwarf. I could have been just trolling to see if you guys figured it out, but you did figure it out. But I wasn't trolling. I was just wrong. I thought he said Tywin. That's what Martin does with some of the names. He starts them the same way. Like, Ty is a very common name for the Lannisters. And he'll do that with some of the other families, too. Kind of a similar naming convention. And that's what I'm going to blame it on. I'm not going to blame it on my stupidity. I'm going to blame it on George R.R. Martin, right? For making those names too similar. Random Traveler, I think you should start making short, segment of your interviews with Anthony. It will help boost your algorithm. Yeah, I'm thinking about cutting that clip into segments. There are at least 2 or 3 that could work well. He's not a big name, so he won't get, those videos probably won't get as much as, say, the Fuentes and Candace and Tucker and Dave Smith stuff I cover. But I probably will come out with some segments that are interesting. Especially about, the atrocities and stuff. Did you watch Stranger Things yet? I only watched the first season, 2 or 3 episodes, and I just couldn't get into it. I kind of like the 80s motif and stuff. I grew up in the 80s. I'm 42, so, I was pretty young during a lot of it. But it it wasn't my thing, and I think it's like the paranormal aspect to it just doesn't intrigue me that much. But I know people that love it. I have good friends that love that show. That wasn't my show. But Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, those are my freaking shows. And House of the Dragon. And when Night of the Seven Kingdoms comes out, I will see Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And then all of the spin-offs of Game of Thrones, I'm sure I will love, or at least I'll give them a chance. I thought season 1 of House of the Dragon was way better than season 2. But I'm hoping season 3 is good. They've deviated from the book a lot more in season 2. I didn't really appreciate that, but the effects were sweet. The dragon battles were sweet. Are you in Tennessee? Yes, I am in Nashville. Love Nashville, party town, love hot chicken. Since I moved down here from Minnesota, I've gained too much weight, though. Because, man, there's some good eating down here. Food is good, but I've eaten too much down here. Ozarks Packers. Yeah, Cape, I'm a dog dad. I have 2 golden doodles. Love those doodles. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of them. Maybe you guys, maybe we'll see. So here is a picture of them. These are my doodle doos. So I got this picture when one of them was laying his head on the other one, and I thought it was funny. Like, how is Sebastian's the younger one and Rocco's the bigger one? Like, how is Sebastian good with this? Like, I've never seen this happen where Sebastian was not, like, super pissed off or animated at this, but these are my golden doodles. I love my golden doodles. They're my best buddies. I never really thought I would like dogs, but then when I got dogs, it's like they change your life, so they're good dogs. The big one is 6.5 years old, and the little one's like 3.5 years old. They're half brothers, right? They have the same mother. No, they have the same father, but different mothers. So, good golden doodles. Dogs are the best, man. They're the best. I was like, oh, this is going to change my life too much to have these dogs, and I don't want to take care of them, and I can't go on vacation as much, or if I do, it's harder to do it. But man, like, what they give back to you is so much more than you ever imagine, and it's just like, I can't imagine life without them now. Right on. Taro Man Harris. Hey, thank you for the $4. You didn't include a question with that, and that's fine. But if you have one, just let me know and I'll answer it. But I really appreciate the $4. And I appreciate all the super chats. Lord Hybrids, yours was fierce. Really appreciate that, man. You don't have to do that. I mean, it's like, there's so many streams you guys could have been watching, and for some reason you guys, got super high or super drunk and picked mine. So I really appreciate that. Or at least that's what I'm going to chalk it up to. Like, that had to be the reason. It was either that, or you lost a bet, or, you rolled a dice and it was like 666 and you had to choose mine or something. It was definitely like, you drew the shortest straw to tune into mine. But for real, thanks, guys. Duchess is a cat lady like JD Vance likes. What? I don't even think I know that reference. Like, what? Did he say that? That sounds familiar. Did he say, like, I like cat ladies or something on some interview? That sounds vaguely familiar now, but I don't remember. Can you explain that? Duchess, yours is the best, and I'm not high or drunk. Well, I mean, just be real with us. You're lying through your teeth. You're lying through your teeth, Duchess. Let's see here. I'm staying up past my bedtime right now because I work in the morning, but I love these live episodes. Steve, thanks, bro. Really appreciate that. We'll do more of them. Like I said, I'm not going to commit to every single weekend, but when I do, it will probably be either Friday night or Saturday night at this time. It's cool because I don't, like, compete with that much other, like, big stuff on a Saturday night. And dorks like me, they're not at the hot and most hip restaurant at this time. I would do that if I could. I'm going to Vegas in the middle of January. I'm looking forward to that. There's an affiliate summit that I can work with affiliates and make more money that way. I don't want to do live ad reads, but I do want to collaborate with affiliates, maybe to drop links in my description, help us both make some money and link up with people at a convention called Affiliate East in Las Vegas in mid-January. So I love Vegas. I'm going to stay at the Cosmopolitan. Love that place. For me, it's the food. I love the food in Vegas. And the networking will be cool. Airspace is airspace. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's right. Now I remember. JD Vance insulted cat ladies once. Yeah, he made a comment about childless cat ladies. Okay, yeah. Now I remember this. Now it's coming back to me. He did do that. He got some flack about that, right? Like, you don't go after cat ladies. Like, that's the demographic that you're already doing bad with, so you make it even worse, I guess, in that respect. He's being sold as a guy that, he comes from the Appalachia, even though, like, he lived in Ohio, but he just went to Appalachia, like, as grandparents periodically, like, in the summers. So he can speak to, like, the low-born layman, right? Like, that's the rub on him. But also he can speak academic language and his connections to, Harvard or whatever. This is how Curtis Yarvin tries to sell him, right? That could be true. It's not really a tested archetype for a presidential candidate, but we'll see. I mean, the way that the Republicans are doing, it's going to be hard for any Republican to win on this trajectory. Now, a lot can change in 3 years. They have to hope that everyone forgets about the Epstein files and the fact that the president tried for 11 months to bury a sex trafficking scheme that involves some of the most prominent people in the world. That was probably an Israeli blackmail operation by Mossad, but hey, we'll just hope the Americans forget about that. Hope they forget about the spending and debt, the deep state corruption. Hope that they forget about, the U.S. chose Israel above our own communities. Launch a new war versus Iran. Maybe by that time, a new war versus Venezuela. They have to hope for all that. And Peter Thiel. Yeah. Lionesses. You got married in Vegas, Duchess. Was that at like one of those drive-in wedding chapels? Was it like the old chapel of the West or whatever? JD Snake. All right. A few more questions, and I think I'm losing my voice, which is weird. Ugh. Sorry, guys, if that was too audible. Maggie Bonilla says, I love your channel, really partial and super instructive. Appreciate your hard work. Maggie, thank you so much. That's really kind of you, Maggie. JD Bishop, I remember you from last week. Again, you should really invite Pastor Chuck Baldwin on your show. Maybe I will. I don't know him well enough. David Copperfield is doing his best disappearing act ever. Copperfield's been playing at MGM Grand forever. And man, I've never seen his show. I would see it, but his show isn't that highly rated. And he's very old now, so. Oh, we got a new super chat. Right on. From Adrian Jones. Please stop putting your channel down or comparing. I started watching you and enjoy your channel. You're right when you need to be, and we'll get what God needs you to go in your time. You are doing great. Well, thank you so much. Adrian, thank you so much for the kind words. It's just a self-deprecating sense of humor, I guess. I think it's funny and it's a way to connect with people, but I appreciate that. I really do. The kind words that you give me there makes my day, frankly, and I really appreciate your super chat. Very generous of you to do that. I'm glad you watch it. I'm glad you love it. Super kind of you. Wow. Really, wow. Thank you, Adrian. Seriously. Yeah, I'm my own worst critic. It's true, man. When you have a channel that grows like this, and I never expected to happen, it's like I have imposter syndrome, right? I'm at a level above what, internally that I've, I guess, internalized, and I think, I've reached a limit to some extent, but maybe I haven't. Maybe I can push it further, get better guests, but I do still have, that imposter syndrome, right? That it's not good enough. I really do. It's just something I have. I don't know if, that's that apparent because I do speak to some authority in my videos often, and I have, rigid opinions, stubborn opinions sometimes. But I have a self-deprecating sense of humor, and I'm a perfectionist, right? So I never feel like I reach that level, and I hope I do. Steve P7713, I really appreciate you joining as a Liberty Soldier. Thanks, bro. Since you do that, Steve, you have access to all my videos before they come out. So now, since Steve did that, he can go to my videos and watch the members only ones. There's only a few right now, but usually there's anywhere usually from like 3 to 8, depending on the day, that you can watch before anyone else. So it's pretty cool. Random Traveler, hey, thanks, man. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I am humble. What made you start your channel? Just a hobby. I just wanted to talk politics. I wanted to react to like kind of dissonant pundits of the day from both the left and the right, and weigh in and give my own perspective, which I guess you can call the libertarian perspective, but I don't limit it to that. Like, I just call my perspective, like, that's when it comes down to it, I am a libertarian, but I'm a dissident, and I tend to have dissonant values that can connect on a spectrum that includes a lot of Americans on left and right poles, sometimes at extreme ends of those poles. And I just thought that was missing. Like, you see a lot of YouTubers that only delve into one side of things, like they're only covering like the right-wing dissonant stuff, and then you see like left-wing YouTube channels that are only covering like the left-wing dissonant stuff, and there's always overlap between the two, but you see mostly people specialize in that. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to cover dissonant thought in the United States from the best right-wing distance and the best left-wing distance. Not even the ones that I agree with most, but like the most prominent, the most interesting to me. Just examples like Max Blumenthal, I think, is one of the best left-wing dissidents in the country by far. He's a genius. He's a brilliant journalist. I've learned a lot from him. I think he understands the right better than the right understands the right. And on the right, it's like people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, and Nick Fuentes even, where it's like, I agree with some of those people I just listed more than the others, but they're interesting people. So I want to kind of cover both, bring my opinions to both. Ash of the Dead. Don't have imposter syndrome after Charlie died. I set out to try to find reasonable voices. Well, thank you, Ash. I really appreciate that, and you've been very supportive in the comments throughout the time. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your guys' encouragement. Wow. Duchess, you're fair, Dave, and you don't swear. You've noticed that, huh? Yeah, well, thank you. I do try not to swear. I think I've said, like, hell and damn a few times, but... And it's just conscious. I don't feel like I need to swear most of the time. And I think a lot of people do that just to draw interest. Like, it's, you know, it's... I don't know. It's considered like, oh, wow, he really swore on his podcast. I think that's kind of played out, actually. Oh, Duchess, thank you. You taught me about libertarianism when I was looking where I fit. Interesting. And if you don't embrace all of my ideas, that's fine, guys. Like, I'm sure, like, in this crowd right now, I have, what, like 300 concurrent viewers? I'm sure, like... there's like 2 that probably agree with me on everything, right? And that's fine. We need to like be willing to say that that's fine to our fellow Americans where there is so much overlap, because what the regime and the political machine tries to do to us, they try to divide us against each other, usually on cultural lines, right? It's the culture war, and I have my own perspectives on the culture war on stuff like abortion and immigration and DEI and wokeness and gun rights and all that stuff. But usually it's the political machine that uses those issues to divide us most. When you'd be surprised how much overlap you probably have with fellow Americans that, you know, don't agree with you on a lot. And I want to like facilitate that kind of dynamic, kind of to rupture the previous political paradigm that we've lived under and operated under in a way. And I hope that my channel does that to some extent. I exist in that overlap. Blind Boxer, thanks for the kind words. Maggie, thanks again for your support. Astrobot702, let me guess. The Peace deal was a flop. It sure looks like a flop, man. We covered that a little bit earlier. I think I spent, what, like maybe 10 minutes covering that. So once this video comes out, just check the early part of this stream and you can see it was a flop. But thanks again, Adrian. Thanks again, Maggie. We got Adrian Jones, 8989. Adrian, thank you so much. Wow, I really appreciate your support, Adrian, for being a Liberty soldier now. So, Adrian, you'll have the chance and ability and power, I should say, to view my videos before they go live to the general public. So, wow, Adrian, I really appreciate both the super chat and you joining as a member. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Wow, dude. You guys are great. You guys are really, really great. Trump's F-bomb delivery is on spot, though. Is spot on, though. I don't know. I mean, I guess when it's employed properly, like, it's defensible, but it's just not my style, right? It could be other styles. Like, it doesn't tend to offend me the most, but I try to live as a Christian and not have a sharp tongue for the most part unless it's really called for. And I don't think it's often that called for. I think it's kind of overused to some extent. And if you feel differently, that's fine. I'll defend your right to do it all day, right? I'll defend the worst ideas, you having the worst ideas, and your ability to have them. That's an extension of free speech that we get from our Creator, that we get from God, in my estimation, right? And that no government on earth can justly take that away from you, even if it's expletives, even if it's like some of the most unpopular type of speech, hate speech, racism. You have the right for that. But guess what I think the answer is? It's not more censorship, it's more speech, and that includes expletive speech, right? What's worse, Newsom or J.D. Vance for president? Well, I'm so glad that I'm a distant libertarian that doesn't pull a lever for one of those two. But I guess if I had to say, it's Newsom, but I don't like either. I mean, I wouldn't vote. If that's the choices that you have in 2028, I wouldn't vote in a federal election. Not that my vote would swing anything. I mean, I live in Tennessee. They're going to vote for Vance. Like, all the electoral votes are going to go to Vance. Like, there's no question. And it makes it not even worth it. It's not a good use of my time. I could produce, like, 1 or 2 videos in the time that it takes to vote, and guess how many views I could get. I mean, I'm not trying to boast, but some of my videos can get over 100,000 views. They have. My average videos lately are getting, I don't know, like 20, 30,000, 50,000, maybe an average video is like 50,000. I think that I can affect like our culture and society more by making videos than voting in a presidential election, honestly. And that's not to say I think voting's immoral. I don't. Some agorists do believe that. Some offshoots of libertarianism do believe that. I don't believe that. I think, especially if you vote in what you consider to be self-defense, like let's say like one candidate wants to ramp up your property taxes. They're on the record to do this 15%, and the other candidate, and you trust them, there's no way they're going to ramp up your property taxes. Well, I think taxes is aggression upon you because it's seizing your income, and it's using the coercion of the state as the mechanism, the catalyst to do that. So if you vote for the guy that's not going to do that, that's completely morally defensible. Even if you disagree with them or agree with them on other things, like, that's a self-defense. If you were held captive by captors and you could vote on whether you're released or not, I would not rigidly say, hey, voting's immoral. No, it's not. And some libertarians disagree on this, but there's no problem in my mind with voting. I just think in federal elections, for the most part, it's a waste of time. I did vote in 2024 because there was a local referendum in Nashville where they're going to raise taxes, and I voted against it. So, Michelle Guillen. Hey, welcome back, Michelle. I remember you from last week. Michelle says, I enjoy your videos and how you review and opine on other videos when I don't have time to watch those videos. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you get value out of that. Maybe that is a place where I can add value, where it's like these long-form podcasts, like Rogan does 3 hours, Tucker often does like 2-hour episodes, and I take snippets, and even though I'm adding my own commentary to it, and I'm usually like doubling the overall length, people seem to still appreciate that because it chops it down into digestible portions. I think that is why some people like my stuff, and I'm glad if that's like what you're seeing too. I really am glad about that. Yeah, more speech is always the solution. It's never more censorship. They want to say police disinformation. We need a ministry of truth. we can't deal with this hate speech. It's like, no, I think the answer really is just more speech. It's more speech, countering the speech you don't like. And if that speech is so egregious and so wrong and so immoral, it seems like it'd be really low-hanging fruit for you to be able to counter with facts, for you to destroy, right? With facts and logic. Find your niche, baby, that's right. Words before war. Vance's words all day. I don't know. That's a tough one. You're asking me to pick, like, that question was like Newsom or Vance. It's like, pick what you think is the least or the best form of cancer. It's like, pick between forms of cancer. That's what that question is to me. Oh, 4 times da funky. Your Minnesota accent came out when you said no way. No way. Is it no way? That's like the stereotype, right? No, you can probably hear it, man. Like, I know you can hear it. It's I've lost a little bit of it since I moved down here, I think. But, yeah, you can never lose that. It's like, you know how Arnold Schwarzenegger, he moved from Austria, right? He's Austrian. He can never lose that thing, right? You never, no matter how much time you spend in the United States, you can never lose the accent at that point. I fear that, like, I'm past the point of no return on the accent that way. As a European, I wonder how aware the average Americans are on these topics, says Chris. I don't know. Most Americans definitely don't follow foreign policy or, like, the deep state stories, I think, to the extent I do. I'm not boasting. It's just, I'm a crazy dude. Like, I go down rabbit holes on some of this stuff, man. And I'm a habitual reader, and I just have different interests than most Americans. Now, people that are watching now, I bet you guys do. I bet you guys are in the subsection of America that does care about these issues, does care about what your country is doing in your name overseas, especially when it comes to being a mass killing machine, often on behalf of Israel, by the way. You guys do care, but the average American doesn't care. But here's what I always argue about that is, like, even if the average American doesn't care, they should care, because those issues that we're seeing in these entangling alliances and the debt and destruction from all this and the corporate welfare and all the aid to Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, it never pays dividends for Americans. And it shows a warped priority on the part of our rulers, right? And they call us our representatives, but it's like, no, they rule over us. I hate to say, I wish it weren't so. But it seems like we're long past the time in which they really represent us. It's like, yeah, there's one representative in the House of Representatives for every 750,000 Americans now. It's not exactly representative whatsoever, nor can it be. They represent, J.P. Morgan and Pfizer and Raytheon more than they represent me and you. That's just the cold hard truth. But yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of the sentiments I'm seeing here. Thanks again, Adrian. Let's see. The miracle of sound. Rogan wears people out over time. He even F's up cool guests like Theo Von. I love Theo. Theo's great. I didn't see the full Theo Von episode. What was bad about it? What did you think was bad about that? I saw some segments on it. They talked a little bit about Massie and a few things, but most of the topics they discussed on there, it didn't have my interest when I looked at, like, the timestamps, so. But was it good? Save Europa. Only the facts, baby, yeah. Duchess of Camelot. Americans know all the Kardashians, though. It's like, when I see it, I forgot where you're from, Duchess. Let me know where you're from again, but it's like, when I see, like, a truth from a foreigner like that, it's like, Americans know all the Kardashians, though. It's like, here's what I want to do. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right. It's like, that's my response. It's unfortunate. Yeah, most Americans don't have like the same priorities about what they care about for sure. You know, they live under a system that's propagandized them from cradle to grave, and I'm sure that's true in most countries, but I hope it's not like that. I think the independent media is opening doors to correct that and steer us in like a better direction to some extent, more than it ever has in my lifetime though. So that's at least good. Oh, Pennsylvania. Okay, I'm sorry, Duchess. For some reason I thought you were like European or something. But yeah, you're right about the Kardashians thing. It sounds like a bad stereotype though, like something someone would say about Americans to show like bad sense of priorities. Not to say like you should have other interests. Like you guys see mine. Like I love football. I don't talk about this a lot in the show, but I love like true crime. Maybe I do because you know I've talked about Charlie Kirk and Epstein and stuff like that. I love true crime. I'm really into those communities too. Love like Game of Thrones, like Lord of the Rings. I actually don't have that much nonfiction. I don't read that much nonfiction, but Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones I do. But I have a lot of hobbies, so I'm not saying you can't have hobbies, but like to me, if it's like what really matters to like ourselves, our families, our communities, like our localities, just good old Americans that are close to you and you interact with, it seems like more important for us to, I think, pay attention to like the deep state and you know, the debt crisis and the foreign policy than Americans do. I don't know about what you guys do, but a lot of Americans have to struggle just to make ends meet, especially right now. So they're focusing on how to improve themselves, and they don't have those leisure or, you know, first world mindsets to be able to go into those stuff. But I think it matters. All right. Oh, Joe shut down the Israel talk real quick. Did he though? Because dude, like Joe's had freaking like Dave Smith on, and like he's had others talking endlessly about Israel. I don't think Joe Rogan like intentionally shuts down conversation about Israel. In fact, like he seems to not be in one camp or the other. Or like Joe becomes a slightly different person depending on the guest he has. He just meshes well with most guests. And there's been a few moments that have been contentious on his show, but it's actually not the rule. And he's had a lot of anti-Zionists on. There's some other examples I'm not thinking of, right? But Ian Carroll, he's on Ian Carroll, talked about Israel a lot. Dave Smith talked about Israel a lot. Who else? There's been more. I don't agree with that, but I'm trying not to judge what you said about Theo because I didn't see that episode either. But he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that usually does that. Theo Vaughn said, "How long will Israel let us live?" And Joe changed the topic quick. I think that's what they're talking about. Okay. Okay, fair enough. It's like maybe that's true, but I mean, Joe said some things that are like would not be kind toward Israel on some of his shows. So it's just like maybe that there's a more plausible reason he changed the subject. It's like what do you say about that? I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of what I would respond to that. Like if I was in his shoes, like how long will Israel let us live? I'd probably talk about the destructive nature of that alliance, right? And that relationship and how I think it's always been for the worse for Americans, but I don't know. Joe's talked about Israel, not all glowingly. Rogan just missed chances to crack jokes with Theo Vaughn. I paused halfway because Rogan sounded unhappy, repeating the same topics, too serious. Okay. I'm open-minded about this. I need to see the whole episode before like weighing in with having like a strong opinion, but all right, guys, probably like 5 minutes more and then we'll close out here. It's been over 2 hours and I think I'm losing my voice. But again, guys, I really appreciate everyone that left me a super chat, people that joined as members. Really appreciated you. Lord Hybrid, Adrian, we had Maggie, we had Michelle earlier. We had Steve join. There were others. Oh, my chat window kind of froze. What the? There were others I wanted to thank, but I think it's just like my chat's too long or something. But Yeah, I appreciate you guys, and we'll do this more often. Please drop a like on this if you haven't already, if you would. If you're not subscribed yet, please do subscribe. You can hit the little bell below, too, for notifications when I'm back. If you like this stream, you can click that bell, and then you're alerted whenever I'm back, which is super cool, too. If you liked it, if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to go to everyone, but it's helpful if you do like it. And Liberty, what are your thoughts on Tim Pool? His numbers are falling off a cliff, and he's whining about it, blaming Candace Owens. I think it's hilarious. Interesting. I did see the clip in question. I mean, there's no lie. It's the people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson that are succeeding much more than people like Tim Pool right now. But I respect him, and here's why, man. He's had some of the best libertarians on his show platforming them over the last few years, including yours truly. Your boy went on Timcast. You can still find my episode on Timcast IRL if you search for Dave Benner, my name. I went on his show back in June, and he treated me respectfully. He gave me pushback. He wanted to talk about libertarianism like half the show, and we talked about that a little bit, certainly so. Like he had a grudge against it, but man, he's had Scott Horton on, he's had my boy Dave DeCamp on, he's had Dave Smith on multiple times, he's had like a few other really good libertarians on, and I thanked him. I said, Tim, like, thank you for having good libertarian dissidents on your show, and I respect you. I know we don't agree on a lot, but that's cool. So hey man, I respect Tim. I don't share his takes a lot, but he invited me, so it's hard for me to like say like he's a devil, because he had me on. He gave me a chance, and it's like, well, I know we don't have the same thoughts on Trump and Israel and stuff, but I like that. Lasse 9553 with the 20 knock. What is knock? Is that Norwegian money? But thank you so much. He says more live streams, please, from Lasse 9593. Now I have to do a knock to USD converter. Or yeah, it's the Norwegian krone. So a Norwegian krone. I'm gonna convert this to see. Okay, that's like $2. All right, well, thank you. I had to do conversion. I've never gotten knock as a payment, so that's sick. Thank you. Oh, Karma Police with the $5. Thank you so much. So Karma Police 777 with the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. You didn't put a question in yours, but that's fine. I appreciate it. But if you have a question, put it down below and I'll answer it before I close out, Karma. But thank you so much. 4 times the Funky said Joe was pretending not to understand what Theo was talking about. Like, hey, don't get us killed, bro. Okay. I trust you. I mean, a few of you guys have said that. I just need to see it. Steve, I got to be up at 4 a.m., but this is well worth it. Nothing beats podcasters actually interacting with the chat and answering questions. Dude, thank you so much. I'm glad you guys like this. I actually didn't think you guys would frickin' like this. I thought, like, why would they want to talk about, things about me or my style or who I want to talk to or politics with me? I thought, like, oh, they got it out of my videos. But you guys seem to like this, and I'll keep doing it. I think I got 400 viewers at one point. I think I got close to 450 or something. Like, that's pretty good, man. Like, that's really good. So I'll do it more for sure. I'm glad that you guys liked it. Nordic Disciple, God bless. Unit Ready, God bless. Thank you. I can't believe I made a live stream. Josh Higgendum, we're almost done though, dude. Sorry, you can watch it when it comes out here in a second. We're going to close down soon, but thanks for joining. Dan's Macabre, you're an old school libertarian too, Ron Paul era. Right on, man. Hey, me too. Celtic because you're humble. Well, thank you. I'm glad you think that. I do strive to be humble. I think that's one of the most important characteristics we can be, is like never get too big for your britches. And it's like, to me, it's like the best content creators are humble. So I want to do that too. And I try. I know I fall short of it, but I do try to do that. It's better than passive listening, more educational. Okay, cool, man. Back of Beyond, thank you. I appreciate that. Truth Freeze. Also, I want to try to I need to find the plugin in OBS to put your comments on the screen when you have them. I think that will be beneficial in the future. I can do that in StreamYard, but I don't like to use StreamYard for this kind of live stream because I like to split my display and use my OBS scenes to like show videos and stuff. Saturday night. This is a party for a lot of us guys in our 40s. Yeah, I guess so. I would do this too, man. Like, I would go to a stream and just hang out and chill and talk to the content creator. Michelle Guillen, Candace Owens. Yeah, protect Candace, man. I love Candace. I would love to have her on the show. She's so heroic and relentless and courageous. Really love her, even if when I don't agree with her on everything. Candace says, never think you're smarter than your audience. Absolutely. And isn't it the biggest problem, right, with Trump? She brings that up a lot about Trump. Never think you're smarter than your base or your audience. And that is so true, because Trump so clearly does. He thinks he can just like call this a Democratic hoax in the Epstein scandal and then it's going to go away. You think he can say there's nothing here, that it's boring and it's a child trafficking ring? It's like, I'm sorry, no, we do want to get to answer this. We do want to get to the bottom of it. And, you're not smarter than us by trying to gaslight us in the other direction. So, yeah, I'm with her on that. Interview Adam Green. I don't know who that is. Dr. Professor, so your vid sparked real change fast. What you expected in years happened in weeks. I'll explain the rest in a longer comment soon. Okay, great. I mean, the channel's grown quick, but I'm glad that's your perception. I hope so. I hope I'm part of this thing, man, because it's like division of labor in this political system. For me, it's like, I guess, like, I can talk this stuff. I can try to persuade people of this stuff and its importance and why it's important to think about as Americans, why we should pay attention to it, why the political system doesn't work for the average person, why they are screwing us both on the left and on the right, both the Democrats and Republicans. I hope everyone finds value in that, because I think there's nothing more apparent than that. Lee Linnell Show, what are your thoughts on the Free State Project? Heroic. Love the Free State Project. If people don't know, it's a libertarian project in New Hampshire, that it was designed by a guy named Jason Sorens. He wrote this white paper that said, hey, we have a new strategy for libertarian concentration. What is it? It's a grand kind of plan for libertarians across the country to move to New Hampshire and concentrate there to affect the political policy in that state in a more libertarian direction. And there's reasons why New Hampshire was chosen. It's a small state. You can make an influence with lesser numbers of people easier than a big state. It already had some redeemable features, and I think no income tax at the time it started. It doesn't have an income tax now for sure. But great project, really great idea. If I was super wealthy, I'd buy property in New Hampshire. I love it. I hate the cold, but I love the libertarians up there. I know people like, I don't know, man, Jeremy Kaufman and Ben Weir, and I know Carla Garicki, and I know a lot of people connected with that. Robley Hall. There's lots of great libertarians up in New Hampshire. If you're from New Hampshire and you're hearing this, I bet you know some of those if you know the Free State Project, but really good idea. Truth Freeze, good insight, sense, and ideas reporting. All right, thank you. Blind Boxer says, I used to despise Candace when she was on the Daily Wire, but I do admire her and worry about her safety. Absolutely. But you got to admit, man, at the end of her Daily Wire run, she had freaking Dave Smith on, man. Just think of like Ben Shapiro like in a quartered off office like yelling at that, like, why is she having Dave Smith on? It wasn't supposed to be this way. We wanted Hasbara. She was getting based at the end of her time there, and that's really was the schism with Shapiro. But yeah, I'm still in the Daily Wire website comment section under the articles because it's free. They're all fapping. They're all fapping to this Venezuela stuff. It's so sick, right? They all want regime change in Venezuela. All the neocons want that. There's a big Venn diagram between like neocons and Zionists and regime change in Venezuela too. That's for sure. All right, guys, I think we're going to close down. This went over 2 minutes, and I just really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for the support. Got some great super chats, but it wasn't all about the super chats. It's just interacting with you guys. Actually, this made my night, gave me encouragement. Thank you for that. If you couldn't afford a super chat or whatever, totally fine, man. Do not care whatsoever. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure to click like below. Make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the future. We'll do this again. I'll try to get more interviews, and otherwise, let the videos continue. Let the positive interactions continue. And thank you so much for all your support. Peace out. Let's do this, though, just for funsies. No more war, no more debt, no more inflation, no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next live stream. All right.